Hey, thanks for tuning in. We got a great show for you tonight. We got John Pennisi on. You all know who John is. He's a former Lucchese soldier, and he has a show with Tom, NBA and the Buttonman, and he has sit down news. And John's a good friend of mine, and we're really excited to have him on today. So hopefully we'll have a nice discussion with John. But we're going to come back to John in a minute. We're just coming back from COVID. Nicole and I, praise God,
Yes.
and Paulie's feeling good, right, Paulie?
Yep, I'm feeling fine.
Paulie's doing good. But before we start anything tonight, I wanted to talk to you about a few things. We have some products up on the website on BobbyLuisi.com. T-shirts, cups, hoodies, baseball caps, masks, a few different things, Also, what I'm doing right now is I started a membership page on YouTube. It's only $4.99 a month. And why we're doing this is because it's very expensive for this production. We're not really looking to make money, but we'd like for it to pay for itself, wouldn't we? I think that would help, And any way you could support the show, it would be great if you went up there and maybe get some products or maybe join the membership. Right now we have Larry Mazda show up there and full episode. And John's full episode will be up there tonight. And hopefully you'll start going up there and maybe seeing, we're going to put our little bloopers or whatever we do, and we're going to, our raw footage, we'll have that up there too. So it might be nice if you want to join and become a member. Also, I got some knives that I signed, and we're selling them on eBay. It's, what is it, Nicole?
Bobby Luisi autographed knives.
Autographed knives. You go up to eBay and you can get your autographed knives if you want. You all know I love to cook, and these are nice
we
knives
love
for
your
cooking.
cooking.
Yeah, I know. I cook for them all the time. And like I promised before, we'll do a few segments with the cooking now. All right, listen, I want to again introduce Nicole to you. She's our production coordinator for the show. She takes care of everything. She schedules everything. She takes care of whatever we're doing, advertisement or whatever. So she's really working hard for us. So Cole, why don't you tell them a little about yourself?
So I've actually been in production and film for the last 8 years, and do sports television, movies, commercials, and also would love to get involved with any product I'm passionate about and feel like it's going to be, really successful. And this is one of those projects, and I'm honored to be asked and be here with Bobby and Paulie. And I hope you guys tune in because we have so much great stuff coming out for this spring. I know you'll enjoy it.
And we're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're lucky to have Nicole.
Thank you.
Nicole's an asset, We can't do everything. I'm just a face, right?
Whatever you want to tell them.
All right, well, whatever.
Let them make their own opinion.
Yeah, it's not going to be good. But anyway, all right, stay tuned. We're coming right back with John. Thank you, guys. We'll be right back.
I'm ready.
Oh, John, it's great to have you on the show today. I was telling, me and Paulie were talking about your show, but, when we did it the other time, that was really nice. I love your show.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah, we did. We had a great time, and I want to ask, Paulie wants to come back on your show, and I'm dying to come
Anytime.
back. Yeah,
Anytime.
I'm dying to come back on.
Anytime.
I got to talk to you like it's just an interview. You understand that, John. So you got to tell us something about yourself.
I'm not as good looking from the side as you are.
They're gonna torture me over that, don't you, John?
Yep. So anyway, I came from Queens, and because I came from a broken home, I lived both in Ozone Park with my father and Howard Beach with my mother. So it's funny because all the social clubs were in Ozone Park, but all the wise guys lived in Howard Beach. So I lived with them in the same neighborhood, but when I was by my father, all the social clubs were there, and every family had a club almost on every other block, and that it's probably was the same way where you came.
Same way in the North End in East Boston where I grew up, John. Same thing.
Yep. But in that area was mostly like a heavily influenced with Gambinos in that area, because Yeah, like I lived only a couple of blocks from Johnny Gotti's club, and that's where everybody was. And you know, I was a young guy, and like we all were at one time, and I, you know, idolized these guys, and you know, back then they were different. They were all dressed up
Oh yeah.
in suits and pinky rings and nice cars, and it was a little more flashier back then.
Hmm.
You had a lot more old timers back then. They kind of carried themselves a lot more with respect and honor. And when you're a young guy, you know, you see them things, and I was kind of looking up to these guys. And yeah, so
Well,
that's
it was the same thing, you know. I was born in the North End in Boston, and
yeah,
my mother or father got divorced. I came from a broken home too. I don't think I was 2 years old when my mother and father got divorced. My mother
yeah,
moved to East Boston, and my mother met Santo, who's a great guy. They've been married over 50 years. You know, I have a brother, Carl, from that marriage. And, you know, Santo was a bookmaker, loan shark. He did everything, you know, anything he could do. He was an earner, you know.
yeah,
And in the North End was gangster capital, and there was crews in East Boston too. Don't get me wrong. And you know, I mean, that was the life. They had town cars,
yeah,
Continentals, Cadillacs,
yep,
beautiful suits on every day, $300 shoes back in the 70s.
yeah.
I mean, these guys were
Money.
classy. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was something to look up to, you know.
Yeah, back then it was you know, when you're young, you have a different mentality, and you're easy, it's like an impressionable age. So the things that impress you then obviously won't impress you now, but I was, you know, and at that time, I believe, yeah, so John Gotti was probably a skipper back then,
Yeah.
you know, and he had a whole crew of guys, and you knew who was who in the neighborhood, and it was a big deal because you know back then it was very different than what it is today, and so I think that that's what, and also my father was around, but you know always busy, so you know, and because they all originally came from East New York, Brooklyn, right?
Hmm.
Johnny Gotti, a lot of people, my family, my father's family, and then they all moved, you know, to Ozone Park and different areas, Howard Beach, and you know, so as I said, my father was always busy and doing his thing, and now my mother's a single woman, and she knows, you know, these guys all know each other, and everybody's going out. We had barbecues, and guys are coming over, and you know, and what's the first thing I did? And I go and tell my mother and my godmother, I says, I want a pinky ring. I was a
Yeah.
young guy. So
Yeah.
now you start mimicking these guys, and
Yeah.
you know how that is. You want to dress like them, and you want to get your hair cut like them, and that's really what happened. I think that happens to a lot of us. I think maybe all of us could say that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, when I was I think 15, 16 years old. You know, I went back to the North End. I was around my father. You know, he was with all the wise guys. You know, I was saying it before on other shows. There was a store on Hanover Street, Veraces, Italian shoes. They're $150 a pair. We went and got Verace shoes in all different colors. We had that when I was growing up. We had the Sicily jeans, Clipper jeans. You know, so we would slick up every day and go hang around with them. You know, and we thought it was a big deal. 16 years old.
Yeah.
And
And you know, the other kids, they're not walking around in $150, $200 shoes back then. You know what I mean? So you kind of a step above the rest of the kids. They were lucky to get a nice pair of sneakers, right? Back then.
oh yeah, well it was good. I was Bobby Luisi's son. All the
Yeah, well,
wise guys respected me.
sure.
You know, and I don't know. You know, I felt like I was getting groomed at that time. You know, my father was muscle for them, so you know he did a lot for these people.
Yep.
Yeah, he was proposing the family, but he never got made. You know, a
Yep.
lot of guys got pinched. They went away in the '80s. His crew. You know, and before he got killed, he was proposed again in the Salemi faction.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just something growing up with these guys. I mean, from 11 years old, I work with the vendor company, and I'm making $50 a week, John. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it was something. I really loved it, you know?
And so my mother goes to work in a place outside Kennedy Airport. And it was when, if you came in on a flight and your luggage was either delayed or even sometimes it was lost and it would come on another flight or they had to find it. The airports would say, all right, either go home or go to your hotel and take your information down. And they had these contracts with this one particular company. Maybe there was another one, but and we would get the luggage and then we would deliver it to either your hotel room or your house. So the whole business was owned by wise guys. Matter of fact, one of the guys that had a piece of it was Louis Dedon. Louis Dedon winds up at some point becoming the acting boss of the Lucchese's. But back then he was a friend. And of course, when we're getting the luggage, everybody's rifling through the stuff and taking out all the bags.
Yeah.
Because people are sending back jewelry, watches. So before it got to who it had to go to, we brought it back to the office, and they went through the luggage, even if they had to pick the thing open, and they went through the luggage, and they would, even sometimes somebody would send, like from one time from Hawaii, they had the luggage and then it had like 2 cases of pineapples from Hawaii. So one case went south and, we would deliver the other luggage and only one case. One case got lost. And you know how that goes. And so that's what we were doing. But at 14 is how I meet kind of guys like I just wrote on my blog, this guy, Johnny Santori. These were known killers and I mean, dangerous guys. And I'm 14 years old going to work and I'm driving a van for them at this business. And I'm going back and forth in the van. And it wasn't that far. It was like 150th Street. So it's like right outside the airport. And I would go zip into the airport. And I never forget one time I'm in the car and I had a baby face then, right? And 2 cops.
God bless.
Yeah, thank God. And 2 cops pull up. Now it's a different story. Back then, and they looked at each other, they looked at me, and they shook their head, and I just kept, they must have said, "What is?" I was 14 years old.
Yeah.
And they didn't even pull me over or nothing. But that's how. So at a young age, I kind of seen, how they were moving around in that life, so to speak. So I not only was seeing them in the neighborhood, now I'm working around them. And hey, kid, come in. They're hitting me with, $20, $40. And I'm a young kid. I'm making money, 14 years old. And that you kind of start looking up to these guys. And that's what happened, and you start, you want to now be a wise guy.
Yeah. Well, listen, when I was 13 years old, my father was LaGrange Street up the combat zone was Boston. It was really bad up back then. There was all strip joints, the Naked Eye, Enrico's. There was a ton of strip joints up there. And my father was running Enrico's for the wise guys. And I was 13 years old, and I had to take the train to town every day from East Boston, once a week from East Boston. Mm-hmm. And I used to go up, they used to give me 25 for my sister. This was the support money back then. 25 for my sister, 25 for me. So I go up there, get $50 a week. And I was telling the story before. I'd sit in the back room with the strippers while they were changing and everything.
Yeah, I love that story.
Gorgeous black women, Yeah. But the thing is, all the wise guys would come up there dressed to the nine, guys running out, parking their cars. I was around Johnny Cicardi, Ralphie Chong. These are all big names in Boston, everything on Bali. It was just something to see all of this happening at 13 years old. Knowing it's there, know what my father was doing. I mean, it's impressive because, you go back, the kids in the neighborhood, even in East Boston, knew who my father was and what he was doing and around those guys.
Yeah.
Even his boss was at every corner, like you said, was a social club, card games, bookmaking, everything was there. You walk up and down the street and see 10 bookmakers on the street.
Yeah, but you had it a little different because don't forget you had your father, so you kind of seen that they were maybe treating you a little more respectful, and other people,
of course,
kind of was getting a little special treatment, right?
Yeah.
Where I really wasn't because my father was a legitimate. Although my father, when he was younger, actually stood around the club like that. Johnny got in and had, but then he went to work and all of that, and but I wasn't kind of getting that treatment. I had to kind of earn that. I had to go out, not that you didn't earn it, but I had to go. And as I got older, you got to kind of get that respect from these guys. But what I did notice is that when we started getting a little older, and my cousin became friendly with John Gotti Jr., and we
Mhm.
started going over there to the club. Then I started noticing like other people kind of would see you and see you around these guys, and then I finally, had that kind of. I was kind of getting that respect that kind of you were, and I didn't earn it. That was just because they seen me kind of associated to these guys. And of course, and no one's going to ever say that they didn't like that kind of feeling of people giving them a little bit of more regard for themselves, right? But you had it. You had your father there, so you seen it a little before me at an earlier age. And then, of course, like myself and yourself, you got to earn it yourself as we get older. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter who our father is, who our uncle is. Now you gotta, now that you're an individual.
Yeah, now see, at that point, you're gonna make your own mark. But I never mind being Bobby Luisi's son. I mean,
No, I mean that's good.
even up in my 20s, because I told you I went into the construction till I was
Yeah.
30 years old. And if I had a problem, I call him up, Dad, Dad, Dad. I had no problem doing that. But when I got home in the 90s, I had to make my own mark and do what I had to do. Growing up, there was a lot of violence in my life. And like I said, I'm not going to say things that I did when I was
Yep.
younger.
Yep.
Violence really got bad when I came back in the 90s. But my father was always on top of me because I was always doing things. He was hearing stories,
Yeah.
But for the most part, it was good to be Bobby Luisi's son. It was good to
Sure.
be a
I mean,
Luisi.
listen,
You
you
know,
you had, he had already had a reputation and a name for himself,
oh yeah,
and it seemed like I didn't know him, but from what I'm hearing, it seemed like even as I guess as an associate, he was kind of had a lot of they had a lot of high regard and respect for him, from what I'm hearing.
well, listen, my father, Paulie, how many wise guys did he tell to screw? I mean, yeah, no, my father didn't care about not. They like that about him, though. They did to a point. My father, if you had gold teeth in the back of your mouth, he'd find a way to get them out. Listen, he was a good street guy. He was a rotten bastard. And stuff. He was a bodybuilder when he was a kid. My
Yeah,
father
I think I seen a picture of him, and I
Yeah.
seen a picture.
Oh, he was a big guy.
He's
My
a
father was
big guy.
tough guy. His whole life, he was a tough guy. But yeah, like I said, it was good being a son, but that's not good enough when you're out on the street now.
No,
When you're out
up to a certain point, up to a certain age.
Exactly.
Yes.
Once I came back, I had to put a gun on my back and, it was on.
Yeah.
And until he got killed in the 99, he was on me every day. What are you doing? What happened over here? What's going on? Dad, I don't know what you're talking about. That's what I used to tell him. I don't know that. What do you mean you don't know? You're running with this guy. He's doing this. This guy's dead. What's happening? I want to know. You don't need to know, I used to tell him. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he used to want to come at me, my father. He couldn't control me.
Yeah.
And he seen the money that I was making, the things I was doing, the respect I was getting and everything around me, and he couldn't comprehend it, And it caused problems between me and my father. Because like you said, I think I wasn't even 2 years old. My mother got divorced. They got divorced. My mother remarried. He remarried. He had my two brothers, Roman and Caesar.
Mhm.
He's been married 4 times, my father. And this kid's all over the place. But anyway, you don't grow up in the house with him. It wasn't like, my brothers grew up in the house with him.
Yeah,
They had him as a
funny.
father. I didn't.
Yeah, it's my father. My father went and he screwed around on my mother and went and married this other woman, and he had 2 kids with her, and they actually, I mean, it was good for them. He took them out of the neighborhood. He moved them to Jersey. They went to prestigious colleges and got college degrees. So they had a whole different way of life. And, and years later, he had made a statement to me. We don't speak, but years later, he had made a statement to me. And I think it was, and you may agree with me, I think it's an unfair statement because he would compare, well, look at your brothers. And, and I say, yeah, if I wasn't grown, if I didn't grow up in the neighborhood that I grew up around, the people I did, and I had my mother and father living in the house with me, and I grew up in Pearly White, New Jersey, and I went to a prestigious college, I don't think I would be in the predicaments I am either. But I didn't grow up that way. I grew up totally different. I came from a broken home. I was surrounded by the mob. And not that that's not that there wasn't any guys in that neighborhood who became lawyers and doctors and Indian chiefs, but what kind of shot did I have? I didn't have a big shot. You know what I mean? I could have went on straight now, but I didn't. I didn't.
And I had the same thing with my father. You never get that bond if you don't live with them.
Yeah,
I loved him. He was my dad. I guess, you love them automatically. You can't help that. But I never really felt, I was his oldest son, but I never felt the affection from him. These kids, I see my friends used to grow up around their dads and the life they had with them. I didn't have that. I didn't have that bonding. And I think that's my problem and your problem, because we were out there looking for something. We didn't know what we were looking for.
Yeah,
we didn't get it in the house.
And Bobby, you know what I remember, and this is something that a lot of people that are hearing this are going to understand, because at one time we all played some kind of sports, right?
Yeah.
And I was on a baseball team in Howard Beach, and I never forget it. Now my mother was working. My mother always had to work, and she spoiled me because she felt she was trying to make up, the broken home, and she used to go without to make sure I had the best clothes and whatnot, right? And so I'm on a baseball. I asked her to join a baseball league, right? And I wasn't a great athlete. I happened to get, I guess, lucky one day, and I hit a grand slam, base loaded grand slam, my only one, right? And I'm running around the bases, and I'm not excited about hitting the grand slam. I'm looking for my father's face as I'm running around the bases, and I made it to home, and I never seen his face because he wasn't there. I thought maybe he was, maybe came to the game late, and I was coming around second, and I'm looking, and I'm coming, and as I went around this whole ballpark, he wasn't there, and kind of that was what my life was like with him. He just wasn't there.
Well, I got to tell you a story. When I was a kid, growing up in the North End before, my mother moved, because we did move back to the North End for a little while. I lived on Prince Street. And I was in